we're good to go. I think we'll go ahead and get started right on 4 o'clock. So we'll start the work session. And the first item to talk about today is a discussion about the Towns at Brylee Farms Phase B, an update. And I believe Steven's got this, right? With Greg? Hopefully. Or we can just invite Greg up if you're, okay. Go ahead and tell us what you got.
So you can see what I'm talking about here.
Yep.
Good deal. So first I wanted to say thank you. Last week at the city council meeting, you approved the first amendment to the development agreement, and that allowed us to count the four that were in lots from, or the 4 lots that were in Plat 2 that we hadn't anticipated when we made the development agreement, and agree to the sequencing with the parks in Plat 4. So I appreciate that. I used to be on a planning commission, and one of my pet peeves was when people would come in and we'd give them recommendations or make suggestions, and it seemed like they would kind of do some token changes but didn't really listen to us. And when they came back, it was like, were you not taking notes? Yeah. So we tried to take good notes from last time and make some modifications with Element Homes as architectural partners, and we wanted to come and kind of run this by you and get your feedback. So last time when we were here, the mayor asked about the possibility of pushing the townhome back and extending the garage out 2 feet, and we actually did it about 3 feet. And so this new design is 24 feet deep on the garage. And we had our architectural partners put in some different trucks and minivans and sedans, because I remember you asked about different cars and how they would fit. So this is a Ford F-150 crew cab, and it's parked in the garage. You can see that they put in garbage cans to scale. And then they have some minivans. There's a Honda Odyssey and a Toyota Sienna, and some different sedans like a Honda Accord and a Honda Civic and a Toyota Camry and a Tesla Y. But from our conversation last time, you said you wanted a garage that was useful and functional instead of being so tight that you couldn't have both cars and garbage cans in it. And I remember one of the questions was a concern about the stairs, if the stairs extended too far into the garage, or if there was a landing that would reduce the usable area of the garage. And we double-checked the grades and everything, and all of the garages will be able to have a 1-step maximum. So it's just 1 step that's inside the garage, and it doesn't affect the usable space. And the reason why we were doing this, if you'll recall, we had in our development agreement that there would be 40 townhomes built that were 3 stories that had a minimum of a 600 square foot garage. And we've built 20 of those so far, and they just haven't been as well received by the market. And so looking forward at the last lots that we have to build with the larger garage design, we felt like if we were able to do a 2-story instead of a 3, and with this updated design that's 24 feet deep, we wanted to get your input on that to see what your thoughts were. But we think this could, still offer a design with a bigger garage area that's functional, but also would be helpful to have that interest from the market. So I'm happy to answer any questions or hear your thoughts on it.
So would these be in lieu of the 3-car or the 4-car garages, or would you be doing this new 2-car garage design also on the other units that were already planned as 2-car garages?
So the way the development agreement was is that there were to be 40 with the larger garage, and all the rest of them would be the standard 2-car design. And any that we would change would need to have a plat amendment to the plat, and we want to keep going forward with the construction of the other ones. So the 20 that have been built are these 4 in Plat 2, these 16 in Plat 3, and then the ones that are left to build are these 4 fourplexes and 1 fiveplex. And so what we would propose is we would actually end up with 41 of the larger garage design instead of 40, but it would, the 20 that are already done would count towards the requirement, but we would propose to do an amendment to the development agreement to allow 21 of these larger garages to replace the 20 the 3-story ones with this minimum 600 square foot garage.
So if I'm not mistaken, you're asking if this is palatable so you could come back and ask for another amendment?
Right, that's how we would memorialize the agreement, would be a second amendment to the development agreement.
Is there any feedback? Does this seem to meet the requirement that we were looking for?
And I didn't mention the garage area with this extended garage is 496 square feet, so.
So maybe to help the council.
What's that?
What was the prior square footage of the garage?
The prior square footage was, I believe, 421.
421?
Yeah,
And
of
this-
the
and this
two-story,
is-
yeah. And this is 496,
Yeah.
so. And it's 24 feet deep.
But to be clear, I mean, I want to make sure we're understanding the ask correctly. You're required to build 600 square foot garages now on those 3 stories, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And so you're asking to build a 496 square foot garage in lieu of those 600 square foot garages because, and then keep it a 2-story because it's a little easier to market. I mean, is that a fair assessment?
When I say the market, it's not like the marketing, like the advertising. Like we've taken them to market, and
You're just having a hard time selling them, and you want them to sell, and
Yeah,
so do we.
The buyers have been tended to gravitate towards the 2-story more than the 3-story.
So the changes that would come back are 100 square foot less garage, and these would remain 3-story or 2-story?
So these would be a 2-story
So
rather
two,
than 3.
it's just the 2 changes, from 3-story to 2-story, and the garage from 600 to 500.
Well, I'm gonna ask a question. I mean, let me say this. Thank you for listening to at least what our concerns were. It's obvious that you understood the intent of at least what my concerns are, and I think probably what the council's are in general.
You're welcome, and thanks for letting us know what the current concerns were.
But with that said, I guess for me, the question would be simply this: is there a way to incorporate this into more units that have that smaller footprint or that smaller garage? I don't know if there is or not. I mean, that's why I'm asking, because if we're willing to consider this, and perhaps we should, I'm not saying that I'm a yes or a no on it, but perhaps we should. But if we're going to do it, I'd like to know, can we incorporate something beneficial like this into the design of some of the remaining 2-story units? That's what I'm interested in hearing about.
So the intent had been to do the plat amendment, and that was one other thing that I guess is kind of more of a procedural thing. On these 4 units, we did a lot line adjustment, which the state law allows and is a little faster and easier for us. But our feedback from the staff was that it's not as easy for them. And so they asked if we would have our surveyor do a plat amendment rather than a lot line adjustment. And we're happy to do that to make it easier and better for the staff. But to answer your question, to get up to the 40, it would actually be 41. We were intending to do the larger garage on the 21 units that are currently shown with the red 3 for the 3 stories. And that would kind of get above the 40 with the larger garage. That was the intent of the original development agreement.
Can I restate the question? I think sure. What Councilmember Wright's asking is that these units up here, what is the size of the garage on those? And would you increase it in exchange for decreasing these, make those a little bit more palatable as well? So the other units would also, in exchange for making these different, is that right?
That really is the intent of my question is there a way to perhaps increase the size of those that aren't required to have the larger size in exchange for reducing those that are required to be 600 feet to the 496? That's really the question. I don't know if
So I would,
architecturally that's something that can happen, right?
so from an architectural standpoint, we wanted to get feedback before we had the structural engineers go through and redesign the structure. And this one's already been poured, the footing and foundation walls. It's getting backfilled right now. And this one is getting dug and poured in the next week or so.
So which ones could you make an adjustment to if you're able to do so?
So I would have to get with Element Homes on their schedule, but in addition to doing the re-engineering of the structural engineering, we also have to do the plat amendment before we could do it. So our thought had been to do these 5 last, so there would be time for the plat amendment to happen. But this one we were hesitant to because we've already installed the trail, but if we had to tear out the trail and redo it, we could. These two, it would really depend on the timing of the plat amendment. So I don't want to dodge the question, but I don't have enough information to answer. But we could get with Element Homes and see what their schedule is, and get with kind of the planning department and see how long they think and our surveyor, and see how long they think the plat amendment could take.
So I've kind of hogged the time, and I'm going to just leave this. I'll give you my last little bit, and then step back and let the other council members give you some thoughts. I'd be willing to entertain what you're asking if there's some additional benefit in creating better off-street parking for these residents that are over and above those 40 that you're already obligated to do that on. If all you're going to do is change a 600 square foot garage for a 500 square foot and go from a 3-story to 2-story, I don't care. To me, that's not a huge upside. Okay. I mean, it's actually a downside from my perspective in that we're reducing space in those garages. But if you were able to say, look, we want to do these 496 square foot garages, and we're willing to incorporate some better garage design to incorporate the feedback that we heard council give to ensure that the people who either purchase these or rent them will have access to a useful garage. That's really what we're talking about, and that they'll be able to store their garbage cans inside and get 2 vehicles. I like the vehicles that you used. I think those are very appropriate. I think that many of our residents are going to have 2 vehicles in a similar setup. And it makes sense. It gets them inside. It gives them some protection, and it also keeps them off the street. So for me, at least, I'd be willing to entertain that. I'd be willing to entertain going from the 600 to 496, let you go from 3-story to 2-story if there's some additional benefit in those units that aren't required to have the larger garage. That's really what I'm looking for. Is there a chance to do that?
Okay.
Mayor, can you go back to the one that shows like the overall?
The layout.
I think it really comes down to parking, and I'm grateful that 1, you're listening to the market, and 2, that you've made an attempt to change, because certainly we've had developers come in here 3-4 times, and every single time it's the same stupid thing, and it's like, you guys didn't listen to us last time, but you listened. So I appreciate the effort to make a change. I guess one of the suggestions that I would give, and I'm gonna kind of look to my fellow council members to see if this would be enough. What if they added some additional overflow parking spots in the neighborhood where those homes have the smaller garages? What if, even if it came down to taking 1 lot out to add way more overflow parking? Because I think that ultimately would be cheaper than a full redesign of ones that are already the 2-story ones. So I'm just wondering if that would make a big enough difference for my fellow council members.
I've got some questions for you. What's the difference in the width of the garage from your 3-story model?
So the width is the same. It's 20.08 feet. And the reason for that is the lots are already platted, and we can't make, and all of the utilities are stuck to them.
That leads to my next question. And so basically we've given up the storage space behind that was there in the 3-story. We've gone with a longer garage per se that will enable trucks, garbage cans, and even some SUVs to be in there. But we haven't really gained any ground on the width of the garage.
That's correct. One thing we have gained on, though, is the original, when we did the development agreement, the 2 stories did not have a basement, and now the design with the 2 stories has a 520 square foot unfinished basement. So the 21 townhomes that we're proposing to have this 2-story design with the larger garage, it'd be 520 times 21, about 11,000 square feet of, I actually did the calculation, let me look. 11,000 square feet of unfinished basement storage space that the 3 stories would not have because they're slab on grade.
So my concern is width. I think you should probably remember that from our last conversation. They need to be able to get out of the car once it's in there, especially when it's snowing, raining, or whatever. And if they pull in at the same time, it really is going to be the finagling that we tend to see where everybody gets out and somebody backs the car in to get out. Do you feel like that there's any flexibility to move that to a 21.5-foot width inside?
Where if it was a paper lot and it was just kind of a concept, it might be possible, but where the roads are paved and all the utilities are in and all of the
You'd end up losing
utility
a
laterals are
unit
stubbed to
from
the
it.
lots, it would be.
I'm less concerned about the parking. I mean, it's a townhouse community. I mean, there's only so many places you can put parking. I think that you've shown, at least on this design, that there's space to be able to park on the driveway. You can fit inside the garage. I think that's the intent, at least from my perspective. The width is a bit of a concern. I don't think we gained any ground on that. And I don't know that I'm one way or the other not having the space behind the garage. I think they'll likely use that for a storage space more than they would use the basement for that. The basement just ends up being a catch-all. But that's a decision you guys make. I don't care about that stuff. That's really not us. That's going to be market-driven and whether people agree with that. I think for me, what we were looking for as far as the parking, I think you've accomplished that in my perspective. I do like that the floor plan is a little more palatable to the people who want to buy it and don't have smaller floors. So for me, I don't really have any problems with this.
Great, thank you.
I'm along the lines of what Councilmember Wright's asking, is that if we're giving up space and taking a 3-car and going to a 2-car, if you can improve the 2 cars in the other areas that were smaller and you can make those 2 cars larger, then I would be open to looking at that for sure. So if that's something you could bring back, I would be open to looking at that.
Okay.
Let's go back to the other page. So you only mentioned a couple, so what they've both said, you mentioned that these ones aren't done, but also these ones. So we're looking at this row and this row that still possibly could be adjusted. That's what you're asking.
And I don't want to commit to it. I need to find out.
Well, yeah, I was just out there, I think.
Could you state your name for the record?
Oh, sorry.
Taylor Keys with Element Homes on the sales part of it. I was out there. I believe they've got this blue. You need to
Here's a
point
pointer.
right here.
Is
So
there a
that
pointer
blue
there?
right there.
This one's getting backfilled.
That
right
one's
now.
getting backfilled, and I think they've dug here. And I guess we'll have to look at and see what's been submitted, right? But if I'm hearing what you're saying, is go back and say, well, what buildings could be on the table? So whether that's a function of, we just have to say, okay, here's how many have been pulled, here's what's on the schedule, and then we come back and say, well, we could do this building or not do this building and kind of see if that fits what you're looking for. Ultimately, I think the goal here is to gain more than just the additional 20.
Well, this would be 21.
Yes, and 20, right? So I think I'm hearing what you're saying is you would like it to be a greater benefit if we're going to do this. So.
When it might not be the exact same as these other units you're talking about here, but at least bigger than what's already designed. Yeah. As a trade-off.
Sure.
Because I don't know what the design is on those. I don't remember.
Well, so we had so around the perimeter there, it's the typical 2-story with the garage that was originally approved, the smaller garage, right? And then we have this 2-story with the bigger garage, and so the question would just be, what units could we?
So it would be easier to do the ones around the outside just because
There's more space.
Space towards the boundary. On these ones, it would be taking up, the grass, open space, or going into the trail. But
So that's something.
It sounds like if you can make that happen, you'll probably get a yes.
I think we can take that feedback and get back with the team, and then we can bring it.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I would agree with Brett and Craig. If we can get a little more value there, come back with that, I think that'd be fine.
Okay, so I'm gonna sum up what I've heard, and if I missed something, let me know. These units on this outside, potentially adding a little bit of garage space. These ones weren't on the table anyway, so it's just these ones out here. Maybe some additional parking if it fits.
these ones are all built on the south boundary.
No, yeah, I was just pointing at the parking here. So these ones get increased a little bit in exchange for these ones getting decreased. And then a potential additional parking similar to this, guest parking somewhere.
So I was zooming in on the tabulations when the civil engineer designed it. The required parking was 378 and the provided parking was 386. And we had them add parking basically everywhere that they could. You know, there's a lot of places where it's just 2 parking spots wide because it's in between the
And I heard
units.
Councilmember Wood say that he was less concerned about that. So his parking is more of just a, maybe that
There's
would
just not a
help.
place to put it. Like, if they've already got the footprint that's planned, I mean, you're gonna have to start giving up units. And I just don't think that's a feasible solution.
So the parking's, we're okay with the parking. Then it's just getting some added benefit in these outside units. And I think then we'd consider is that good? Anything else, Councilmember Clark, is that good feedback? Do you have other
Yes,
questions?
it is. And there's a handful of places that don't have the parking space, but I believe that's where we put the transformers. So, yeah, we'll go back and get with Element. I know this one, the building permits are already submitted and it's going to be dug soon, but these ones around the outside will get with both the structural engineer and the surveyor and the planning department and see, you know, on both the replatting and re-engineering and see how quick that could potentially happen.
And thank you for working with our staff on the replat versus the line adjustment. I mean, if they're asking you to do that, I'm grateful that you're willing to entertain that.
Yeah,
So thank
and
you.
the reason we did the lot line adjustment on this one just is our surveyor said it's faster, but looking at how much work it takes to get it updated with the county, I can see why the staff prefers the replat, so we're happy to do that. Okay, thank you for
Do
the
you have any other
feedback.
questions? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Very
Appreciate
good.
you coming
Thank you.
in. Getting through that. All right, so next item 1B is a discussion about Healthy Utah Communities. This is something that the council, an initiative we talk about every year when we're in St. George and I believe in Salt Lake. I know the deadline's coming up, so Steve is going to lead this. Tell us what we got to do, get some direction. I know the Community Services Board also worked on this, I believe, and if there are any other questions, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll see if it comes up here. It's not coming up. Okay. I may have to go hang out in Dave's spot over there.
We've got help coming from the back row.
Should be as easy as plugging in and going. I'll give an intro then. Yeah, we always go to these conferences in the fall and the spring, and then we hear about all these communities that are doing great things related to health and food and mental health and active living. And then we're always like, why aren't we doing this? Let's get going. And so Natalie Winterton actually did some work on this last year to get us going, and the city council last year approved a resolution to authorize the mayor to sign a letter and start the application process. And then we were lacking on a couple of areas that we couldn't fulfill back then. But now that we have our community services board in place that can act as our health coalition, we hope that will work for it. The Get Healthy Utah organization, the 501c3 Get Healthy Utah, put together this community Healthy Utah Community Designation specifically for towns and cities. And our size requires that we implement three action items with it, 3 strategies within 3 different categories. And the first is active living, and then there's it's related to food services, access to healthy food, and then the last is mental health. And so at the request of the council, I started working with our community services board, with Jesse and Charlotte and the board, and we talked in a couple of different meetings. We had other priorities pop up, so we've been talking about it for probably a few meetings, but this last meeting we really dove in and chose some strategies that we've already implemented, and then also recommended 3 additional strategies that we need to propose to implement over the next 3 years. Yeah, I can just plug in over there if we need to. Yeah, it's probably my computer. Okay, hang tight for a moment. Okay, we'll try this one, Lacey. And if it's my computer, it won't pop up. So we will. Yeah. All right. Great. Okay. So passed the resolution last year. Requires 9 implemented strategies and 3 strategies within each of those categories. And so this just gives you an idea. They have a list of, hey, here are some recommended strategies within the active living category. There's a bunch of different things. We can go back to that if you want. Same with access to healthy food and mental health. And so the strategies that the board chose to recommend to have shown that we implemented already or are currently maintaining. First was to organize a free or low-cost fitness event for your community, and we do the annual turkey trot every year. It's on Thanksgiving morning, brings out thousands of people. They love it. That's one of our event staff's favorite events. And then second was to create an active transportation plan or update an existing one. So we do have an existing bike and pedestrian master plan that needs some more updating soon, but you, council, also approved the off-street trails master plan just last meeting. And then third, improve physical activity among the youth by promoting a physical activity resource program or best practice in schools. The example they gave on their website is, for example, safe routes to schools. And so we talked about that. And the schools all create a plan, and then the city helps as much as we can to implement that. And it's not just having sidewalks and trails to the school, but it also includes from the school side other trainings and practices, activities to help encourage kids to bike and walk to school. So that's the active living. There were other options there as well, but those are the 3 that the board recommended. Second is access to healthy food. So the first was host a community program to promote healthy eating. And our library has had a seed exchange that's for vegetables and other seeds that they've had for quite a while. And that's pretty popular in there. And then improve access to emergency food by establishing a food pantry or program or improving an existing one. And I think you're all aware of the food pantry that we have in the library, the emergency food pantry that's right there in the entryway, and that's been well utilized by our community. And then establish a farmer's market that accepts SNAP benefits. And I've been told that that's what our farmer's market does, that we partner with that group, and they're there every Saturday morning during the summer at Quarry Ride Park, and then we've also included the farmer's market in some of our major events recently as well. And then last is mental health. First one was we decided to use the other category, and it's to promote a program to foster encouragement, connection, and hope across the community. And so the council passed the resolution to become the first believer city with the Show Me a Sign organization. And then we have that event as well, the Motivational Mile. Second is host a recurring community event that promotes social connection among a vulnerable demographic. And so one of our vulnerable demographics is our senior citizens, and the council's been great to support them with funding and with a location that we expanded fairly recently. And then they have all of their events that they participate in. And then third is implement a strategy to promote safe use of guns. And we do provide free gun locks at our library. and also can promote that on social media and to our residents. So those are the 9 strategies that were recommended that we include. And then the next section is to show the data. Look at the data that's out there and be able to determine, okay, what are our greatest needs as a community so that we can implement 3 new strategies over the next 3 years. We didn't have time or take the time to go through this in detail with the Community Services Board. They did recommend some strategies, which I'll show you. But I wanted to show you some of the research from these 3 locations that are recommended. Public health indicator-based information system, which is on the Department of Health and Human Services website. The Utah Healthy Places Index, which is more of a map system, and you go in and it shows it breaks up basically by tax areas, breaks up the city and the whole state. And then Utah State University Wellbeing Survey, which they just barely released the results from that. So all I did here was include some of the areas that we're either doing poorly in our community or close to, or that maybe I was concerned about. And so one is fair or poor general health, and it's a percentage of adults aged 18 and older who reported fair or poor general health. And in our community, that was 16.6%. That's higher than the Utah average, lower than the U.S. average. That was a little concerning. 7 or more days of poor mental health in the past 30 days. 21% of our residents are adults. That's under the state average and the national average, but still concerning. And then vegetables consumed 3 or more times per day, just showing, do you have a good healthy mix of food available in our, where there's a red exclamation point, that means we're lower or worse than the Utah average. Another was high blood pressure or high blood cholesterol. Ours was quite a bit higher than the Utah average. And hypertension. Doctor diagnosed hypertension as well was higher. The recommended amount of aerobic physical activity, and so recommended amount for adults, it looks like, is 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity. And it says we're about in line with Utah, but we're about 9% lower than the Utah average. Adult obesity and overweight or obese adults, ours was slightly higher than Utah in both of those categories. And then how well are our female adults looking ahead and planning for mammograms and pap tests and others? And our rates were quite a bit lower than Utah. And almost done with these, but the suicide rate is lower than the Utah average, but obviously it's one of those like 0 fatalities kind of number that you don't want to be high at all, if possible. So that's concerning. And then depression prevalence as well. Percentage of adults who have been diagnosed with a depressive disorder, major depression, minor depression. Ours is lower than Utah average, but still 23% of our adult population. And then on the well-being survey for Utah State, the average rating of personal and community well-being, so they rank each of those. And the last time they did this survey, they're comparing it to the 2020 results, and so our numbers have gone down on both of those, it looks like. And well-being domain importance, and you go, how important are the following categories to your overall personal well-being? And they have quite a few categories there on the left. Mental health and safety and security are the most important to our residents, 96%. Living standards, family life, close behind. Physical health, environmental quality, leisure time, and then it goes down from there. So just showing those are really important. Even if we're doing fairly well in some of those categories, they're very important, so we should keep putting efforts towards improving those areas. How connected do you feel to Eagle Mountain as a community? Looks like most of the respondents at least felt average or below connected to the community or as a community. And then inclusion for individuals with disabilities. How well does Eagle Mountain include individuals with disabilities in social, recreational, and cultural activities? 43% probably didn't have anyone or know anyone that was disabled. The rest looks like somewhat, quite well, somewhere in between. There's always more we can do, of course, with that. So the board, again, they didn't go through all of that data, but they recommended 3 strategies that we destigmatize mental illness through a community campaign or event. And there were several events talked about. The high school is involved in a suicide prevention walk. And then add wayfinding signage for trails that provide both time and distance for routes, or maybe conduct a messaging campaign to promote physical activity in the community. And third is an other category, which is to implement adaptive sports and recreation programs, or host a recurring community event that promotes social connection among a vulnerable demographic, which could be our disabled population. So I know our Jason Hall and our recreation group have been very interested in implementing some sort of adaptive program that's more robust than what we do currently. And currently we just kind of combine with the rest of the cities in Utah County, and participants that are disabled, their families have to drive them all over the place to participate. So one day they'll be in Lehigh, and one day they'll be in Eagle Mountain, and another day they'll be down in Orem or somewhere. And so it'd be nice if they could stay here and continue to participate.
Steve, there's actually a woman that has been at the farmer's market that is promoting the Special Olympics in Eagle Mountain. She's trying to bring a chapter here. And so I just want to put that on the radar of the Community Services Board. I would love to see us find a way to help them as a vulnerable demographic and see if we can incorporate them into some of our city events.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah, she stopped by our booth at the farmer's market. We all talked to her. That's a great idea. These were other options that were discussed or thrown out there as possibilities. Establish a community garden. We do have a couple board members looking into that. Develop a new walking, biking trail, or add to an existing one.
Hey, Steve, I want to jump back to that community garden. Is that possible to do that in multiple locations?
Absolutely.
I mean, with the size that we are, it'd be great to have that in a bunch of locations.
Could I, just for context, I know he's wiggling over there about this, but Brad, we already have some places, right, that we've identified. There's water run there and they kind of get run down. Do you want to speak to what's kind of already available and why they're not maybe used, or at least speak to that for a minute?
Yeah, there's one spot over in the Pioneer subdivision that has previously been used for a garden scenario. And we actually had some outside entities come in with some residents in that area. We ran water to the site. It still exists. After about 3 seasons of trying to plant it, the garden just never took off, and it kind of failed. And so we haven't seen a successful campaign with that yet. If we could get to a successful campaign, then I think we start with 1 or 2 and find out what works, and then we can expand on it from there.
Yeah, one of our ideas was to do that at the senior center, possibly, if we have enough room, where the seniors love the idea of gardening and helping out with that. And maybe they take some ownership of it.
So is that something that they could, it's all kind of ready to go if the Community Service Board looks into that, or is that something that they could pursue? Or is it the ground location that's no good?
I'm sure that there would need to be some amendment to it I mean, it's been sitting in a state of, not in a garden state for several years, so there's probably some prep and whatnot, but yeah, there is a water connection already in that location.
Send a pan or a location so that we can look into that.
It's right next to Pioneer Park on Silver Spur Way. But yeah, we can give them some info.
I was thinking maybe there's an opportunity to do some teaching, how to start from where it's at, because a lot of people probably are in similar situations. Perhaps that's a volunteer thing that we could bring some of our hobby farmers in to teach, and we could use that as the teaching tool to be able to create our very first one that way.
There's a chance, Jen Corrington that runs the market, she's a big gardener and in that space, maybe she could help do some classes, I don't know. something like that.
Yeah, I think the key is to get some community members that are passionate about it and that are willing to continue and help with the trainings and other things. We had some other options: messaging campaign to promote healthy eating, offer suicide prevention trainings for individuals or organizations, and beautify, enhance, or create a section of the community that promotes social gathering and connection. Those are all kind of options that they list that we threw out there. And so really, I guess, really what I'm asking today is, do you support the 9 strategies that are shown up there, and then either these 3, or tell me which 3 you want to pursue over the next 3 years, and then we'll include that in the application and have the mayor sign that and submit it tonight. We'll get that in tonight because they gave us an extension to be able to get it in today. If we want to be, and we don't have to, obviously we can wait and take our time if we want, if you're not ready, but otherwise we'll get it in tonight and then be recognized at the September ULCT conference.
I'm a yes. I think we should move forward.
Yeah, I think the initiatives are great. I like what you've done to hit each of the 9 things. I'd love for us to, I think that there's maybe a 2 birds, 1 stone opportunity with some of our undeveloped open space that is weeds, where perhaps we could identify some of those for a garden that becomes useful to the people who live around it.
Yeah, I'm supportive of this, and frankly, I want to thank you, Steve, for your leadership, and the Community Services Board for their willingness to kind of dive in on this, so thank you.
Yeah, I support this. I would like to see this application. We've been waiting for years to get this submitted, so I want to get it done.
Ditto.
Yeah, I remember the very first time I ever went to the ULCT, I'm like, why aren't we on the list? And so we've been looking at this for a long time, but it just needs a signature on the application for us to get recognized. Just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. Then lastly, is there any other questions from council for either Steve or I know 2 of our community service board members? Any input, questions? Good? Okay. I think that'll work.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll move on to item 1C. This is a discussion. I know we came into the office a little while ago and spoke with Roger. Come on up and with concerns about clear lines of sight for their business. Turn that mic on. Did it? There's a button. There you go. It's on now. Okay.
We good? Last time I was able to talk to the city council was in 2020. I don't know if any of you were here. Melissa was, I know for sure. Jared was. And that's when we were moving in to this facility and coming in to buy land for our facility. As you can see, we started building our facility in 2021, right at the beginning of 2021. We are a satellite communications company, and we moved from South Jordan down here, and one of the reasons was to be able to get enough land to be able to do what we needed to do. And so, as you can tell from the facility, we do satellite communications. We are a hosting facility where the ground and the look angles are very important to us. And so that's one of the reasons why we're here, is to be able to help you realize that we help other companies to be able to provide communications from voice, video, streaming, whatever the case may be, internet data. We provide that communications for these folks. The thing that's happening today in the industry is, rather than going into a lot of detail, there's a satellite coverage called GEO, which is Greater Earth Orbit, that goes way out there, and LEO. Many of you have heard of Starlink, okay? That's LEO, that's lower. And so we are hosting a lot of lower Earth orbit satellite communication facilities. And so our contracts that we are developing now, because we came in, we built, we went through this whole process, are now coming to fruition, and they're starting to see the value of our facility and the look angles that we have in our particular area. And so that kind of gives you an idea, is one of the reasons why we came here. We can go to the next slide, or can I do that?
No, you'll have to let
Okay,
me
no
know.
problem. This is great. Okay, so that kind of talks about what we've done when we came in. We had our open house with Melissa came in with the Chamber of Commerce. We did our open house in November of 2023. As I mentioned to you, we were looking for a location. Now here again, I'm telling you what I remember when we came into this facility is that the area that we were looking at was zoned as light industrial. Okay, which for us was very important to us because of the height restrictions of those particular areas. It's important for us with a lower look angle facility to have a 10-degree look angle. And so that of 360 degrees. As the facilities were coming into the north, LKL, I believe it is, the drywall company that came into the north of us, the Salt Lake Fitness company that came in, they met perfect. That was fine. Their buildings were great. Everything was the right height. But now we're starting to learn a little bit more. If we go to the next slide. Some of those that we're finding and that we're learning about and what we're seeing is that some of the zoning has been changed. And now this could be true, it could be wrong, I'm not positive or not, but what we're seeing on the maps is that the facility right to the east of us, right next to our property to the east, between us and Arrow Construction, which is Willie's place, is now industrial, which means if somebody came in there and wanted to build a 5-story building, that could be detrimental to me, all right, just because of the look angle of a 50-foot type building for my particular satellites that they're looking to the side. We've also learned that QTS, of course, bought the property to the west, which is zoned agricultural now, but could also go industrial, all right? If they are too close to us on that side, that could potentially be a problem as well, too. Now, if they built the size of Meta, a building that, is only 25 to 50 feet or 25 to 35 feet, that would be okay. But if they're offset far enough off, that would be okay too. Does that make sense, everybody? Just that 360 is what we're looking at. And then, of course, what really caused our attention is when all of a sudden we saw construction, equipment happening to our south. We found out that the city was doing some stuff there on the water treatment facility, which made us a little bit nervous. Then they brought in some construction trailers. We did an analysis where we could look to see over those construction trailers. We're fine there. But if somebody wanted to build some buildings there, particularly with the berm that is there, that could be an issue for us. Just to be able to see over top of that, because where our property line is on that 10 acres that we have is critical for us to be able to have that 10-degree look angle. So that kind of gives you an idea where we're located. Pony Express is the one that's right there on the right-hand side of the square. That's where our property is. The new property to the west of us, that green area, is the agricultural QTS property as well, too. And so our biggest concern right now is to bring the council, as well as the city, just the awareness of the fact that when we came here, we were with the understanding that it was light industrial and that we couldn't get those buildings. That's one of the main reasons why we came. And so we're here now. All these are starting to come in. We have numerous contracts now that are coming in which are multi-million-dollar contracts. And if I come across a problem where they can't go 10 degree, they're going to go somewhere else to do their work. And so that's all I'm asking for at this particular time. We can go to the next slide. That's really kind of what we're asking for, is that we either look at changing the zoning of those areas around us, or we look at options to be able to just help us out a little bit, just to scoot them back or to allow it so high or whatever the case may be. But we just needed to bring this to your attention so that you knew where our concern was. Any questions?
One question I have is, how far out into these properties does that angle go? Where, do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
yep.
there's probably like so many feet.
This is Rusty Lake.
It's like a property rights issue, right? Like
right.
Somebody buys land next to you, and what you're asking us is to kind of restrict their ability or impede their ability to build on their property.
Right.
which I understand what you're saying. And what I'm kind of wondering is, nothing has been built. And
Right.
as that gets developed and planned out, could there be a partnership where
Absolutely.
we don't put the building on this side, we put it on the other side? And I'm not even sure as a council how we can restrict or zone the airspace above their property.
Right.
Like to,
Well, I have a
keep
different
that line of
question.
sight.
Councilmember Hughes, my question is really this, recognizing that this sounds like it's a consistent problem for you. Sounds like this is probably not the first time you've run into this, I'm guessing.
No.
So it may be one of the reasons why you're relocated to Eagle Mountain in the first place.
Exactly.
And so, trying to understand that, I guess my question is, I'm putting myself in your shoes and saying, if I'm this business owner, how do I mitigate these things, and can I? And so I'm gonna ask a really dumb question, because I don't know the answer, and hopefully you'll be able to make me a little smarter. That's a heavy lift, but some people have succeeded.
Sure.
Okay, so it's a challenge I'm gonna give you. Is it possible to raise your satellites up and then to have that angle be down so that if you do find yourself in close proximity to a 50-foot building, that you can still clear it and have that low angle?
To a degree, yes. The answer to that question is yes, but you can only go up so high. Do you have any other insight on that, Rusty? Just on height of the
And the only reason I
antenna?
ask that question is what you're asking us to do is to restrict adjacent property owners from being able to petition or ask to do what they see as their highest and best use on their property. Right. And that's a real wrestle for us to do that. For me, I'm going to speak just for myself. But I want to be cognizant of the fact that there may be some impacts that are coming to you that you're not warm and fuzzy about. But I don't see this as a lot different than those who come in and say, the builder took away my view and I thought I was going to have this view in perpetuity. We don't buy the view, we buy the ground that we build on. And so I'm trying to kind of wrestle through this and say, if I'm you and I'm dealing with these impacts and I can't retard that or restrict it, and I don't know if we can or can't, my sense is we probably can't and that we probably shouldn't. And if that's the case, then I'm saying, well, how could we help mitigate it? Do we as a council need to be willing to say, look, if you're going to lift those things up 20 feet in the air so that you can still get that low angle, maybe that's where we could help you in creating an exception to perhaps other restrictions that you're dealing with. So that's an area that perhaps I could weigh into and say, maybe we can find a path forward to help you with that.
Right. And I would just add to that, I agree with Councilmember Wright. Have you had some good faith discussions with some of those property owners? I'm imagining they're aware of the issue. They're moving right into a satellite company. I think we had somebody from Meta here earlier. But have you started those conversations as they're contemplating how to structure their facilities?
Yeah, just for the record, Rusty Layton with LBISAT. No, we have not had those conversations, mainly because some of the land obviously isn't developed yet, and the land to the east isn't sold. It's vacant. We're looking at options for the land to the east with some investors and potential projects to just purchase that land, and that kind of eliminates all of it. And I think the core issue is that when we decided to come out, because we looked at multiple locations up by the airport, out in Payson, things like that. But Eagle Mountain, when we discussed with the council back then, the zoning was light industrial. And I understand the impeding, like you don't want your view to change and things like that. But it was our understanding that this would remain light industrial, so we didn't have any issues for our long-term contracts. But then we find out recently that, I think it was 2024, that overlays and other things were changed in those to industrial, and whether that was because of the business coming in, we just felt as kind of previous tenants under the light industrial that, I don't know if we want to refer to it as stepped on a little bit, things like that. But really, so we have on this slide 30-foot and 50-foot buildings, and I kind of ran some of the math on this so you could kind of determine from the point of an antenna. I went off a 5-foot bottom of reflector angle at a 7 degree, not a 10 degree, but a 7 degree look angle, and how far that setback would have to be around. And a lot of our antennas, they're not like right on our property line. They're in 40, 50 feet. Some of these will be a little higher on focal point of the center, so that math changes a little bit. And I also added a buffer for RF radiation. Not that there's a significant amount, but it does have to be taken into consideration. If in the distance you have a 5-story building, and we do it so precisely that our transmit path goes right to the top of that, you get somebody walking on top, there's potential for radiation to that person. It's just something that we have to work with the FCC and adjoining surrounding companies and buildings when we're doing this. Those distances are kind of what we're asking for the areas around us. If it's rezoned to light industrial, that kind of goes away. But if it can't be, that we work with the future builders, whether that's QTS to the west, the city to the south, or whoever buys the property to our east, that those plans, they can still build the building they want. We just kind of work with them to say, here's the distance to these satellites where you would be. We need a 85-foot setback from the antennas that are existing, say, on whatever corner of our property. It's not so much that it prevents people from coming in. It's more just we work with the future development if we can't rezone that area back to light industrial to what it like. So it's still light industrial across the street to the north. It's more just our little strip, the 2 plots just to the east, and then kind of south there for the city water treatment. If that, any questions on what I've said?
I would say this, I think there's value in you raising this and helping us becoming aware of it, because I frankly wasn't. And so I think at least by having an awareness as we entertain some of those other things, we can certainly have a discussion and see if there's a willingness on those who come before us to partner and to try and work through that. We can't guarantee that, but if we're aware of it, we can at least raise it. So I think there's value in you bringing this to our attention.
If I could just, my name is Corey Waffer. I'm the president of our company here. I just have one comment, and that is, as we sat and listened to the 2 previous presentations, the first one was about the size of a garage, and you were all concerned about the size of the garage. Seems to me that if you can be concerned about the size of a garage, you could be concerned about our look angles, is all I'm simply saying. So I'm just throwing that out. So we would appreciate your
I think the challenge, though, is that you're asking us to tell somebody on their land to scoot back to accommodate for your land that you didn't buy, though. I think that's where I'm struggling with this. Mm-hmm. With the view angles, I'm curious, why 10 acres? Why not 50? So that you could centralize your view angles and protect your investment into the future no matter what was built around you.
Well, if I needed an 85-foot setback from my current property line, I'd be in negotiations with those adjacent property owners to buy 85 feet so that I could secure my sight line.
I mean, that's
the kind of stuff
I think
would
that
be thinking.
the problem is they're going to come back to us and say they don't own the airspace or the land that we have purchased, and they've spent millions on that just like you have. Having a council that comes in after the fact is not really to your benefit because we didn't have the conversations. And if these things aren't dealt with in a master development agreement, what really can we do?
Not change the light industrial. That's what we came in on. It's light industrial.
It's RTI, I believe. There. I don't know.
Isn't that Sweetwater overlay zone though?
That's what I think.
The one there is.
It's the RTI there, right?
Yes, it's RTI. I have some things to share with you as well to kind of add
let's see
some
what
more
you have.
information. Let me add a few thoughts here. We'll skip to some of this. So looking across the street to the west, this is the site plan for the QTS expansion. And let me see if I can zoom in. I'm going to try to zoom in there. So you can see the sites just across it's right here. And the distance from the property line to the edge of this retention basin is 320 feet. You've got a whole right-of-way. I don't think they've got a lot of concerns. That's what's going to be built is the retention basin
Do you know what the height of the building is, Brandon?
I was checking on that. I think they're under 50. I'm not 100% actually. We were in the process of looking that up. If I have that before we're done, I'll let you know. But we've got a facility that's kind of built in some buffers with its adjacent neighbors there to their east.
Brandon, can I ask where Magnolia is at on that drawing?
It's right here. It's Virtual Drive.
That's Virtual Drive is what Magnolia is?
That's Magnolia. You've had, as far as development to the south of the property, you've had the new tertiary treatment building that was built over here. It's possible that our city could build additional buildings to the south. Brad was just checking the elevation, the grades to the south on our property actually are a little bit higher. In fact, Brad, I think you said that the grade where we're on our property may be close to the height of the satellite dishes now. So that is something to consider. That land to the south, and here's a zoning map. It's in the LMD. Most of this, so to the west is the ag zone with the RTI, except for this piece right here where we have our ponds there. The rest of it over here is in the light manufacturing distribution zone, or the business park light industry. That's what our zoning map's telling us along, and you can see the Sweetwater overlay. Ag zone, the height there is pretty low. Well, the issue is the RTI. RTI will let you go up to 50 feet. However, it does have the ability to go above that, provided the right approvals are given. Business park light industrial. There is an issue with our zoning map, and that the truth is that business park light industrial zone is actually a land use designation and not a zone. But essentially, what I'm getting at is the light industry zoning that you thought that was there, it's essentially still there. I don't know that the zone. What's changed is the RTI zone overlay, which allows you to go up to 50 feet, and virtually everything in this whole image that I'm showing you is now in the RTI overlay zone, with the exception of our ponds right here, the parcel with our ponds.
Are those ponds right at the bottom there?
Yeah, it's circled in blue.
Go to the other ones. Are those ponds going away?
No.
They retain?
Yep, they'll be retained. The other thing too is it's possible that our land here in the public works property, it very well could be rezoned to the public facilities zone, which would be a 35-foot height. But again, you've got that grade difference between your property and the cities. Sweetwater overlay zone is something else we haven't talked a ton about, but it doesn't actually have its own height requirement. It has it basically relies on the bases, the zoning, or the height of the base zone, which again is basically a light industrial zone, as you know. And here's the current future land use map designations. Most of it's business park light industry. So I think that your neighbors to the west again have been taking a look at trying to mitigate impacts by putting retention basins and so forth and creating a separation from you. So I don't think you've got a lot of concern with QTS. It's possible, I guess, the city could build a taller building, but I mean, I don't think it's super common in a public works facility to have really tall buildings. The other thing too, you and I talked about the idea that these parcels off to the east are land that's undeveloped, and it is possible to consider acquiring that property to provide yourself a buffer. And then across the street, you've seen some of the development that's occurring. You've got the LKL facility, and then the salt. I'm forgetting the name of that building. The Salt
City Fitness.
Salt City Fitness or whatever. And so I think you're kind of getting a taste of the heights that you should expect across the street. So I'm trying to help you get an idea of what's being proposed, what's possible, and I think there are some things that I'd be concerned about, and some maybe a little bit, but I think a lot of things that probably should give you a little bit of hope. It's knowing that QTS is taking care to set their development back quite a ways from your property lines. Knowing
That's huge. I didn't know that before we came in, so that's good information to know. I think, like you said, if that's true with what they're putting in there and stuff, that will give us enough room to be able to make that happen.
Is there somebody, sorry. So is there somebody with QTS that we could get information and swap so that we can actually discuss that in a little more detail, and I could sit down and do the math with it and just make sure that...
I've got a guy named Mitchell Visvara that you can talk with.
Okay.
I'll get you his contact information.
Thank you.
Because we're more than willing to talk with anybody and everybody that we need to be able to help us work together on this, to be able to
That's what
do
it's
that.
about, being good neighbors, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Our biggest thing is that particularly, we understood that, to the west of us, we were a little concerned. We figured we could work with all of you all with the south. We figured hopefully we have some camaraderie here, that you loved us enough because you let us come in and you knew what we were doing.
We want to see you succeed. Let us say it that way.
And so we appreciate that. On the east side of it, I'm also talking with, the development group, the Remax group, and I think his name's Richard Farnsworth, who's selling that property to the east. I've already been in conversation with him and talking with him to see that, because I do have some potential folks that might want to pick that up earlier than later, so we can check on that to see what they're doing. And he's keeping me abreast as to who's interested in that property as well, too. So we are working on that as well. So
I think it's good for us to be aware of the issue, just as plans come forward, that's in our heads, and we're just aware of it.
That was my main purpose, was to let you folks know where we're at, what we're doing. We appreciate you very much for this opportunity to be able to bring this to your attention. We thank Brandon for coming out and seeing the facility and looking over things and all that, to be able to help us out with that.
So one brief question. So are you able to raise the elevation of your satellites?
To some, with some of them, yes. But to, so much, I'm thinking maybe 10 to 15 feet. But there's some of them that are smaller, all right, that have a 17 by 17 pad, all right. But then to be able to build that up a little bit, that could be tough. It could be tough. Could it be done? Possibly. I'd much rather work with the neighbors and work with folks to be able to help it so we could just stay at the elevation we're at. It'd be much less cost.
We turned off your mic.
Okay.
No, there is a question over here, Brad.
So, just for context on our site, it looks like there's, from the top of our pond to the road that's the satellite company's on, there's like a 10 to 15 foot offset in grade.
Right.
So I don't think we have any intent with our buildings to build anything more than a 2-story.
Right.
But the 250 foot, just for context, from the property line, that basically takes in almost our whole buildable footprint for our treatment plant facility upgrade. And we don't have a big option to move that. So it's good for us to be aware with this, and we'll have to work with you through this process. I just want that to be clear and on the record.
are they looking at right to the south right there? Or we were kind of told that it might be a little bit more north and east.
So the phase that we're on will be north and east, but as time goes on, there will be more that will be built. And that's where that treatment plant is gonna expand, just so that it's on your record and on your radar.
Okay.
I just want to speak to that 250-foot number. So that's, I don't want to necessarily use the term arbitrary, but there is a buffer in there that I kind of threw in just, again, it's at like a 7-degree, kind of a lower, kind of 5-foot offset. So that's something that we can discuss a little more. And our antenna systems, there's 2 of them that are already placed now, and the pads for 2 more are there so that you'll, if you were to be at that construction trailer, you would kind of see where they're at. So they sit in about 40 feet already on our property. So that takes it down to 210. And then we figure in some more, like where any potential building will go. I anticipate that number being smaller than 250. That's just kind of a safe zone that I put in at first, just to kind of give an idea of where we're at.
But Brad, I appreciate you letting us know that, because we do need to visit on that. If there's any way that, I mean, that berm that's there, I kind of thought that berm was there just because of the water treatment plant. You know, the ponds were there. I thought that possibly could come down if there's a build that was going to happen there.
And I'm not saying that it can't come down. Okay. There's probably potential that some of it can come down, but I just don't want to set the expectation that everything's going to be at that ground grade. Okay. Because we already have a lot of set infrastructure, and a lot of it's going to run off elevations. And so we'll just have to probably coordinate with you offline.
Okay, sounds great. Appreciate it.
I did just want to point out that these buildings to the north of you, they're all, this one looks like it's a little less than 24 feet. This one is typically, looks like it's on the order of 24 feet on the side. Maybe at the highest point, I'm not seeing much more than 24 feet. So I don't expect
I think we're
development a lot taller than that over on those parcels, but it does give you kind of an idea of what to expect for future development.
Thanks, Brendan. Yep. Appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you
very much. I don't think there's any other questions, and I'm glad to have it on our radar.
Okay, appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much.
All right. We've been working on this for quite a long time. It's item 1D. I know Brad started this months ago, and Ben's trying to get a little broader picture, but just to show both the residents and the council the workload that we deal with on a daily basis, I think, here in City Hall. This is a little bit of a higher level view of some of the bigger projects, and we'll
Mayor, we talked about keeping people's mental health good. Are you sure this is a good idea?
I don't know.
It's never good when you're looking at me. I don't know. I have that effect on people, but Mayor and Council, thank you so much for the opportunity to visit with you a little bit. And it's important to know, especially for the public, that there's really 3 main things that the city gets involved in. It gets involved in day-to-day operations, and that's not included on this list. So there's a lot of things that we do on a day-to-day basis to make sure that people have high-quality water, and that water is processed properly afterwards, and that they have parks. And so there's work that we do day in and day out to make the high quality of life that we have for the residents possible here in Eagle Mountain City. Then, of course, there's emergency response, and that happens all the time as well. I know you get texts from me in the middle of the night, hey, this lift station went down, or this water tank is having an issue, or this well's having a problem, or whatnot. So that's not part of this either. Really what we're talking about today is our projects that we have, and I want to give maybe a little bit of definition to that. We have what we would call capital projects, and that's something that would be capitalized at the end, that there would be a technical asset at the end, like a water tank. You got a tank, here's a project. It starts off with trying to figure out the funding, trying to come up with the initial design, do land acquisitions, going out to bid. We have all sorts of processes that we are required to follow set by code, set by you, the council, so that we can make sure that we're doing things properly, and we're doing it in accordance with not only the laws and ordinances of the city of Eagle Mountain, but with the state of Utah and federally as well. We also have projects that are not necessarily capital projects, but just projects that we would kick off and take on that would still maybe have an asset at the end. For example, we're looking at the observatory, and so that's one where we're getting donations coming in, and there's a lot of work in the background where we're getting grants and donations and whatnot come together. There's a lot of work up front, but it's not something that you're funding as a true full-on capital project. There's something that I would call an initiative. So maybe we have a really good idea come forward. Maybe we want to look into a justice court. Maybe we want to look into solid waste and getting rid of solid waste, large items and whatnot, and new programs that we can offer to enhance the quality of life of our residents. Those often take a lot of steps as well, with many departments involved. And so it's sort of like a project, but it's really an initiative. There's not like an asset at the end. It's really a new program or a new offering that might come forward. And then sometimes we just have some simply hard tasks that are really time intensive. Maybe we're trying to do a certain land acquisition to support the school district or something of that nature. So consequently, I've been pulling information from various lists that we have, trying to give you a consolidated list of all the different projects. And even the one I sent out had some spelling errors, which means that the formats are not, that have been fixed since I've sent it out, aren't sorting exactly perfectly. But really, we're trying to consolidate a capital project list, projects, initiatives, and even right down to the listening tour that you have going on, where you're going to various neighborhoods and residents are asking for things. Some of those translate into a quick answer, and some of those are a major project that we're taking on, or potentially taking on. And every project out there has the potential to make life better for our residents. And so we want to truly look at all of those projects, and we want to give them the due diligence needed. But sometimes the enemy of great is good, because we maybe have something that we really, really want to accomplish, and then we might get diverted with other things. And so as staff, we want to make sure that we're fully aligned with the will of the people, which you are their elected representatives. And so we want to make sure that we're working at your bequest and doing the things that you would have us do. So how does that, I'm just going to go really quickly through these first few slides and get right into the projects. But how does the city go about doing that? Well, we have in the past, and this is more maybe for the sake of the public, we in the past have tried to determine what our values are as a community and what we want to provide. And that's, a healthy and safe community. We want to have accountability and transparency. We want to provide great services for our residents, innovation, make sure we're growing in the right way. We want to be efficient with the dollars that we're entrusted with, and we want sustainability, and we want to make sure our programs can be sustainable and not just be one-time, one-off. And so when we look at our values, we try to tie that back to our strategic goals and what the council would have us work on. And we know that you guys you're all going through a process right now to update these. Where we have a new council, we're going to be making tweaks to this. And so we want to respect the fact that things do change over time, and so we need to be flexible. But our current stated goals are really to have a diversified economic growth. Anything that we do, we need to be able to have the golden goose, that be able to have it keep going forward so we don't create an undue burden on our residents. We want to have robust infrastructure that really can stand the test of time, unique reputational evolution. We want to have something different. When you come around the Unity Pass or coming right into Eagle Mountain itself right at the beginning from Saratoga, you want to feel the difference, what it's like to come into Eagle Mountain and feel what Eagle Mountain's all about. We want to be proactive and generational in our planning, because we have kids that we want to be able to retain and keep here in the future. And so we look at schools and universities and all the different things, job creation, to keep our kids and our grandkids near us at home. We want to have interactive environmental stewardship. We don't want to damage our home and what we call our hometown. And we want to have dynamic services and enhancements. We want to make the quality of life better for the residents that we serve. So we start with our mission statement, and this is Eagle Mountain's mission statement that may be tweaked in the near future of the upcoming retreats. And then from that, we've really tried to prioritize the task that you would have us do, and that's really done on a basis of first and foremost, there's nothing more important than having a strong foundation of public safety. That is the foundation, that is the basis. And so that's when we look at our public safety as being the most important aspect of our community. If we can't go home and have a safe community, have police, fire, and EMS response, then really we have nothing that really we can offer. But on that foundation, we should have a balanced approach to providing essential services. That's all the infrastructure that we would provide. Economic prosperity, so that people have the ability to learn and grow and have jobs here in our community. And ultimately, we have a great quality of life that we provide our residents. And so when we think about all the different tasks that we could take on or all the projects, the more that they can cross over and achieve more than one thing, the better off we are. So if we take on a project that not only enhances our quality of life, but attracts new businesses in as well, and our essential services that maybe this business brings, the infrastructure can support our overall community as well, and that creates stability in property taxes that can be provided for our public safety. That's a win across the board. And so we look at this and we want to make sure that we're doing it in the right way, because sometimes communities get out of balance fairly easily. I always have used this slide since the very beginning of being a city manager. I am absolutely confident, and I have nothing but faith and trust in the city staff that we can do anything that you want. We have talented people, great people on board that can accomplish whatever you would have us accomplish, but we can't do everything. We can do anything, but not everything. And as soon as we try, that's when we fail, because we're spread too thin. And so we are your engine. You are the drivers. You tell us where to go. We will get you there. And that's the whole ultimate thing. We talked in our last retreat about financial best practices, that we need to use budgeting as a tool to establish our priorities into tangible dollars so that projects really do move forward in a manner that you, the elected leaders, would establish. Our enterprise funds should be, and what are enterprise funds for the sake of the residents? An enterprise fund is a fund that we consider to be like a business. So our water fund supports water, and our water rates should be set and established such that they cover the costs of running that enterprise. Sewer for sewer, and storm drainage for storm drainage. All those different enterprise funds are treated as businesses. Our general fund is much larger, and that's where we take some of our other things like public safety out of. I have used this quite a bit, that we can't spend IFCOM. We can only spend our income. So real dollars is what we can actually plan for. In Eagle Mountain, I have learned that there's another term called WENCOM, meaning that IFCOM is if it translates, but let's face it, Eagle Mountain is growing so quickly, and we have things being built on the fly. We know that they're going to come, and so it is a matter of when some of those financial benefits will hit our residents. And I truly believe that it's going to transform our community. We're on a tipping point of where we're going as a community, and so long as we create a financially stable environment, I believe very firmly that Eagle Mountain is going to continue to bloom and prosper with great jobs, great opportunities, and quality of life like we've never had before. We don't want to spend one-time dollars for reoccurring purposes. We want to create stable, sustainable revenue streams. And we want to tie those most stable revenue streams to our most essential services like public safety. We want to maintain what we have rather than replace. We got to take care of what we own. It's kind of like changing the oil in your car. You change the oil in your car so you don't have to replace that car, right? So we take care of what we have. We should only dip into reserves for emergency purposes. It's better for us to own versus rent, so we have to think about that when it comes to like city facilities. And that the city is like building a house. When we build a city, we start with the foundation and we work our way up. And many years I've spent in another city where all we wanted to talk about was what color the house was going to be, or what kind of curtains we were going to put up, or how large the kitchen was. But there was nothing more important than starting with the foundation and make sure it was stable and strong, and it had good compaction. And then we start building the walls and the roof to make sure it's not getting wet, and we do things in the right order, and everything else will take care of itself. When it comes to revenue, there's really three main revenues for a city. It's our property taxes, our sales taxes, and the fees that we charge. And so we have to have balance and stable revenue streams. And if we rely on things that are changing from time to time, like sales tax, then we follow the winds of the market and not necessarily the stability that comes from having diversification of our revenues. With that said, I use the analogy of a house. What is the foundation of our house? It really is public safety. And from that, we have to have our infrastructure, which is our public works, and that builds our essential services. From there, we can have our economic prosperity, and when it's all said and done, that enhances the quality of life with the color of the curtains or the color of the house or whatnot. And so all of these tasks, we really need to start looking at them, all these potential projects that we're taking on, we need to look at them through the prism of what is the most important. And oftentimes, we have to deal with the urgent. Sometimes the urgent is, hey, there's a water leak, a water main blew, and we got to go take care of it. But the important is maybe we need to be checking every single one of our sewer manholes on a regular basis, on a routine, to make sure that we're not, and we're cleaning out our sewer mains so we don't have a backup. You know what I mean? That's regular maintenance. That's important. The urgent is when it gets blocked. And of course, then we also have things that are not important nor urgent, and those are things that can waste or be time wasters. And so when we start looking at that and we want to try to become more effective as an organization, we also have to recognize that we have certain bandwidth and we also have certain growth that we need to do. And so I'm trying to really work hard to build the future of our city. We're about a third the size of staff as comparable cities of our size. And so I recognize that staff that I do have today are the leaders of the future as we continue to build more and bring more frontline employees on. And so we're doing things like a leadership training program right now where we have more than 55 members of our staff, either current or future leaders who want to be future leaders, learning about management principles and leadership principles and how they can better grow and lead their organizations going forward. We can't all do it. If we become the bottleneck if we don't rely and trust on others and let them grow in their roles. So we're looking at organizational alignment and policy maturity so we can go from a crawl to a walk to a fly. And of course, I had to put the fly in there because if there's anything I like, it's aviation. So what are the major projects? I sent a spreadsheet out to the council, and that spreadsheet is actively being worked on by our functional area directors and their department heads right now. And so it is changing on the fly. But I just wanted to review for you and for the public some of those major things that we have going on. And I want to talk about how best and what your direction would be on how we could prioritize those. Because some things, it's going to be challenging to prioritize because they're already active. We're already moving forward. So those have been approved in the past. Some have the opportunity for us to be evaluated on whether we should take them on or not. So I just broke down some of the top ones, not all of them, but some of the top projects that our current city staff is working on to make enhancements right now to enhance the quality of life of our residents. And these are not ranked. These are just thrown on the board, and we are looking to our elected leaders and the public in general to help us rank some of these. But I've broken them down into logical areas. Public works, transportation, that's probably the hottest item on anyone's radar, is that we want to get in and out of our community more quickly, but we want to do it so in a manner that's safe for our residents. And so we're currently doing a pedestrian safety study and looking at speed tables, pedestrian safety enhancements, and the council is authorized and wants us to move forward to ensure that we're putting in, it's not necessarily speed tables, but we're putting in all of those improvements that are going to enhance the safety of each elementary school, each middle school, high school in our community. Silver Lake, Woodhaven, free right turn lanes, that's going to get people out of those neighborhoods more quickly. Silver Lake community traffic improvements. We're looking at the connection to the high school, and if we're going to make that connection, what improvements do we need to make to intersections going north to make that so that those so that added traffic doesn't negatively impact the elementary schools in that area. So we're looking at removing roundabouts and putting new traffic signals in, having better crosswalks and better pedestrian crossings. Branches Parkway, median removal. David's working on removing those medians. There's really two projects that are going on, the High T Campus Drive in Ranches. That's going to make it flow better as you're going north and you're over by the turnoff to the chamber or the city offices to the north. and also to the medians and making that wider so that we can have 6 lanes and then a center turn lane on that Ranches connection between our 2 major arteries. Trailhead, that's the intersection right outside here, and being able to put a light in at Trailhead and Pony Express. We're working on expanding and widening Pony Express going south of Eagle Mountain Boulevard. Right now it's 2-lane. That's going to be 4-lane. This is something that's going to be funded directly by QTS, and so we really appreciate the data centers and their contributions to trying to enhance the quality and flow of traffic in that area. But that's really widening it to 5 lanes all the way south to Pole Canyon Road intersection, and then putting in the new intersection improvements there at Pole Canyon Road. And then, of course, we're updating our transportation master plan, impact fee facility plan, and IFA for anything transportation. That's actually on the agenda tonight as far as the transportation master plan is concerned. These are not all the transportation projects. These are just some of the ones that we wanted to highlight. We would like your input on how to prioritize them as we move forward. These and the ones that haven't been listed. Public Works and Water. We know that water is the next most essential asset in our community, and making sure that we have water resources for our community to continue to blossom, to grow, so our kids and grandkids can live near us. And not just in my basement like I have mine. So Central Utah Water line, and a secondary water line is being planned right now, and a new booster station. City Center, we have a new water tank going in on the side of the mountain over here. The council just took a tour of that on the hillside there. We have repairs to well 2 going on, enhancements to well 5. Well 7 is under design right now. That's by Unity Pass, and that's where a new well house will be built. Well 8 is about to come online, and well 9 is about to be drilled. So we have new water resources that we are putting in, and each one of these wells takes several years to develop and several $1 million per well to have them come online. We have the new Bell Street booster station that's over by the new middle school, the Butterfield PRV valve, creating pressure zones, White Hills booster station, White Hills spelled 2 different ways, but White Hills well upgrade that needs to take place, the culinary water master plan, IFFP and IFA, and allocation-based tiered water rates analysis. That's something the council's had us worked on, where we are looking at how much water had been dedicated, not based on the properties, but size. And so we're creating undue restrictions based on arbitrary numbers, but we are looking at how much water is dedicated to each lot, and then we're charging the appropriate amount based on what someone has brought in for the benefit of their home. And so, and creating more realistic. So if people are overusing water, they're charged appropriately, and if people are within their water that they've dedicated, great. And so we're doing all sorts of things to try to enhance our overall water usage. When it comes to things like wastewater, we're working right now on the wastewater treatment plant. This is a 6 million gallons per day enhancement to our sewer treatment system. There's some major hurdles that we're working to overcome there. Of course, we're going through the bonding process right now and getting rated for this major project. But we also are working with the state to get our permit in order to put this project forward. We're trying to get our reuse permit so we can reuse that water and make precious use of every drip, every time, over and over again. And effluent planning. We want to make sure that as we're taking water out of that sewer treatment plant, that we're doing it in an appropriate way and we're getting proper return flows, but not doing it in a manner that could create environmental risk or hazards. Part of that is we're enhancing our current treatment plant with a tertiary treatment phase 2. We also recognize that as we put new sewer infrastructure in, we have to have newer sewer trunk lines to bring that sewer influent into the sewer treatment plant. So we have an east sewer trunk line underway. Like I mentioned, the effluent disposal upgrades, wastewater master plan, IFA, IFFP. We're cleaning up our boundary with TSSD for the north area of our community right now. And then we have things like that pop up, like the Scenic Mountain neighborhood that wants us to look at their lift station, and should we bring that in as a city asset or not? And so we're trying to do evaluations on that, and we're trying to get data from them. and also other projects to support specific neighborhoods like the Lone Tree Force Main, and et cetera. There's many more projects that aren't listed. These are just some of the wastewater things that we're doing today. We also recognize that we have parks, and we want to make those parks accessible and usable and raise the quality of life for our residents. And so some of the things that the community may not be aware of that's going on, a lot of people have asked, what are those poles going up at Corey Ride Park when they're in the middle of nowhere, and what's going on those poles? Those are actually festival field lighting to enhance and light that area so we can do more events at night. We're putting a new parking lot out at Corey Ride Park. We're probably going to be putting on those light poles added Wi-Fi so we can have better utilization out at the park as well. I mentioned earlier at the very beginning the observatory. That's a project that started from the data centers from Meta. They made a donation, and that has led to getting a grant from Utah County and from getting donations from UVU and some of their major donors, and more money coming in from Meta, and we finally have a fully funded project to bring in an observatory into our community because of the dark skies that we enjoy. And tying that in with educational programming with our school district and with our university. As we've been doing our neighborhood tours, questions came up like, when's the Sweetwater Community Park going to be completed? And so we've been answering those questions and working with developers. Nolan Park improvements, phase 1, Nolan Park splash pad. The difference between Nolan Park splash pad and the splash pad at Corey Ride Park is one recirculates the water, and so it's a good use of the water, but it's very expensive to do that. And the other one, just the water goes right down the drain, and so it's a poor use of water. And so if we're going to make Nolan Park splash pad truly usable, we need to make it so that it's sustainable as well. And then, of course, our Parks and Trails Master Plan and making sure that all of our parks connect with trails and all the enhancements, and making sure our trails are properly managed so that we're not incompatible uses and having e-bikes that are impacting walkers and things like that. So there's a lot of code changes and restrictions and whatnot. And of course, open space management. We have a lot of open spaces that we need to maintain, and the council's trying to evaluate what projects makes most sense to enhance our open spaces and where open space might be able to go back to ownership by the neighboring parcels. With facilities, we know that our staff is a third of the size of other city staffs, and yet we're basically extremely tight in the office space that we have, and we're leasing office space and paying for rental costs right now. And so we're trying to create a temporary office space plan on how we can continue to enhance and add more staff so that we can support the residents that are coming to our community. But we're doing it in such a way that makes financial sense, that we own an asset at the end, because ultimately our long-term goal is to get our staff consolidated in a new city hall, have a new downtown, a third space where we can bring our community together. And so we're working on new city hall downtown planning. We also have things like our public works yard improvements, our north service area planning. There's desire for recreational venues. You know, all of those are enhancements to the quality of life and their ability to serve the residents of the Eagle Mountain City. When it comes to things like public safety, another high priority for us is to recognize that public safety not only is our most essential service, but we have to do it in an affordable way. And so as we are a taxing entity with a unified fire through UFSA, and as our city's financial base is growing, we have to step away from that and become a contract city like some of our other participating cities, so that we can responsibly do that and not put an overarching and or high level of tax on our residents. And so we are working on a conversion to step away from UFSA, but maintain the great relationship and the great services that UFA provides. There's no doubt that they're the top-notch, high quality, and we love having the work that UFA does for us. But let's do it in such a way that as we add more data centers and more taxable value, that we're not creating an undue burden on our residents. We also have to look at our long-term public safety needs. Does that mean remodeling this building? Does it mean including it in City Hall in the future? And what does the future of law enforcement mean? Right now, all of our law enforcement is through an outsourced agreement with Utah County. And what we don't recognize, and one of the things that they provide, is all of their evidence storage, all of their training facilities, all of their overhead, all of their exercise facilities, anything that they have, their sally ports, their maintenance, their fleet, all that kind of thing, all takes place in Spanish Fork. If we were to do that in-house, we would have to take on those costs and those burdens, and so we have to figure that out. And we also have to work with the county on a wise transition plan, and do so in harmony that it's beneficial for all parties involved, but most importantly for the residents we all serve. Our public safety master plan is part of that with our IFFP and IFA there. And then we have new things pop up, like the Best Friends Animal Society proposal that just came in last meeting. It's another idea, another great program. How does that fit into the overall view? As far as community development, I'm not even going to hit all the departments, but as far as community development, I know that they're working very hard on water-wise landscaping codes. They just spent time with our Public Works Department and some of our council learning about water-wise landscaping from Utah State University, and how we can make the best use of our water moving forward. Trying to track our MDA, our MDAs to make sure that all the requirements of developers are really being put in by developers, and having tools in place to be able to help us. Our general plan, so we have the guiding document of where we're going and where you want us to be as a community. Our rodeo grounds planning, consideration of new plans for plan review software, various code updates from the senior housing to the mining overlay to seasonal signs to artificial turf. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are on their to-do plate. And then new things that come up, like the Sage Valley neighborhood sign that we want to be able to support, not only for Sage Valley, but for all of our communities as they are trying to have greater community pride. As far as community services, or a lot of people call that leisure services, that really gets into the setup of our community services board, how they're going to be utilizing the RAP tax dollars, and how they're going to be enhancing the quality of life for our parks and trails and whatnot. Great things are taking place with Eagle Mountain 30 and USA 250 events this year, but we're trying to take in-house our soccer programs. We're trying to look at our SITLA trails and make sure that we have legitimate use of the trails in our community that people are enjoying, but don't necessarily have all the rights to as far as SITLA is concerned, or other private property. Steve tonight talked about the Healthy Utah initiative. We've talked about bringing other amenities to our community, like skate rinks and things like that, because there's economic opportunities in partnerships with Utah County and the private sector that might be able to benefit our community. And just some of the things on administration, everything from justice court to bulk garbage analysis to customer advocacy department, and setting that up to try to make sure that we're basically helping the customer from the moment they call all the way through until they get resolution of their issue. We're trying to educate the public with Citizens Academy and making sure that they're aware of all the things that are going on that makes life better, worth living here in Eagle Mountain City. I've talked about the Leadership Development Program, intergovernmental relations and advocacy. We get impacted by the state all the time with league activities and legislative changes, and so there's a lot of work that goes into that. Various land acquisitions and disposal. I didn't even touch water when it comes to all the water rights and all that type of thing. Website upgrades, project enhancements, project management software rollout, so we can track all of this work. So ultimately, that's really the end of the presentation. Where I'd like to go right now is to get the council's direction on one thing. From this list that is going to continue to evolve and continue to flesh out, we can have the council prioritize that list first and then have the staff take a crack at it. We could have the staff and the council concurrently rank it, but what I would recommend is that you would allow the staff to rank the project by department. Now, not 1 to 200 of the projects that we have, but 1 to 15 in the water department, 1 to 15 in the sewer department or whatnot. You allow the staff to rank those out based on what they consider the highest priority in their critical path items and whatnot, and then send that to you so that you can then review that, make tweaks as you see fit, and then set the final word. These are our priorities moving forward. Because your insights might push projects up or down on that list, but having the insight of knowing what the staff's recommending first is probably the best place to start. And so I'll leave it to you. You tell us. We work for you. We work at the pleasure. You tell us what you'd like us to do and how you want us to do it.
There was one other thing that I was going to mention too, is that Mr. Magnus is here as well, that help with that prioritization. He works on our
legislative priority list. That's a whole
Legislative
nother
list,
list that got moved into here.
So we could have him join in on any of this that you guys give direction on, but is that the direction you want? Is have staff go ahead and rank this, and then we kind of weigh in on some of those? And one of this, like you've heard me say it before, it's like, well, what don't you want us to do if we're going to add this? Because it just gets to be
Why are you looking at me?
I'm just looking down at general diet.
Every idea is a good idea. We love them all.
But it's, you kind of get, this was literally the top 4 or 5, and there's hundreds of things. So just an idea of the workload that we're dealing with, and, we want to make sure that we're doing things, but not also chasing rabbits is what we talked about too. So direction, insight.
I'm comfortable with the staff providing their recommendations. They're the ones that are closest to the source, and I'd love to hear their insights for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and then maybe the council could provide some feedback to, we're probably going to be close where maybe they rank it number 1, but residents would rank it number 2. So that might be a good starting point to rank it and bring it back to the council, and then we can
tweak it,
reorder a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I think it would,
top 5.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
And then there's some things that might not show up on the list, but we know are deeper down there that you might want to move up into that top 15, right? That's kind of the idea as well, that we can move things forward. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think having the information, like if we're at like a critical state, like we're at capacity for a wastewater treatment plant or something like that, I think that needs to be conveyed to us too as part of that prioritization. So it's not just arbitrarily us choosing, but we're given that additional information.
You make a really good point, and I just look at just today alone. Today, we're not only looking at the impacts of a property tax increase on our finance department, but we're trying to do bonding for the new sewer treatment plant. We're trying to bring in the Smiths and the Kroger. We're trying to complete an audit. We're trying to start another audit and answer community questions all at the same time. And so I think I look at the stress level for the finance department, and it may not be high all the time, but this is probably one of your higher weeks. And I think that is probably true for every department, right? So there's times when the water system, MAC is just dying because all the water systems falling apart all at the same time. And so every department goes through their pain.
First, Ben, thanks for providing this, and it's not even an exhaustive list, what you sent out in the email. I think that's really helpful. I think there's some things even that you put on what you kind of brought here that I think ought to disappear, if I'm being completely frank.
Sure.
And probably because and maybe the council will feel differently, okay?
Well, some came from a previous council that may not be relevant anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just give a very specific example, like the ice skating rink. I think we pursued that to a degree and to a level, and in my opinion, there's no sense chasing that. Maybe there is among the rest of the council members. But so I like the idea of the staff evaluating it, saying, look, these are the things that we think are most important, the top 15. We have the 200 to look at, and to look at it and say, look, you guys missed this, or you missed this, or you missed this. We think that this should have a higher priority. And then we can have that discussion about those things.
And if there's anything I want to stress, we're all one team.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
100%. We support you, and we feel like we just want to be aligned.
But I also think there's wisdom in allowing us to give some input so we're not chasing those rabbits. The ice skating rink, at least, is one in my opinion. I don't think that we should be exhausting or using resources to chase that. I think that there's a fairly definitive answer that today's not the right time to pursue that. Now, that's just my opinion. But at least if we know that that's something that's still on your radar that you guys are concerned about and that you've kind of felt some direction from the council or the mayor, we ought to have that discussion and say, let's dismiss that and get it off your list.
Let me answer that one for just a second. So the only reason that came up is because there was some donations that almost paid for it, just like the observatory. As those donations and contributions kind of aren't fleshed out, we're not working on it.
Yeah, man, and I'm not saying it was inappropriate to chase it. I think it was good to pursue it to gain an understanding. But my understanding is at this point in time, that's kind of a worthless chase, isn't it?
Only if it's funded by outside sources, and that's where we're at. So if it's funded, great. If it's
So
not, then.
set it aside and forget about it.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, it's maybe just the timing's not right. As soon as we get some of these needs, these foundational needs like sewer and water worked out, then we might have time for things like recreational improvements.
I would say that I think it would be helpful for us to understand time. Man hours would be important to be added to this. I think it would be good for us to put which funding source would be utilized for this. And then I think understanding time, because I'm looking through this. I have been doing a lot of exercises with AI lately from these types of things. So I love having this information here to just go and show me the workload, who's carrying it. It's a pretty interesting exercise to find out how many projects have been placed on one individual person, which is why they're not getting done. I mean, that's the reality of it. That there's only a certain amount of time in a day. And I think understanding the amount of time that it's going to be to take that, what the cost of it's going to be, how it's going to be funded, should be things that we should be prioritizing that information. So if it's something that's going to take 3 years, it's probably not the highest priority for them to be spending every minute of every day on. But I think we're probably out of the loop as to what the time frame for each of these things are. And when we make an ask, it would be good to say, okay, if you're okay with that, that's 30 man hours. We don't have a person to do 30 man hours. So which project would you like them to put on pause to accomplish that? And I think that gives us better idea of what is important, what's not important. And maybe to Brett's point, maybe some of these things that we have people chasing after are really just dead ends and we need to get rid of them.
I think that's important to the conversation we had is maybe if it's a 30 man hours and we can see that we can't get to everything, maybe we need another guy because we can see the man hours that we're not covering, right? Anything else? Any input? I think maybe get the staff to prioritize these, give us a little bit of a guess on man hours.
And they will flesh it out. I just took lists and consolidated them. Some of the departments aren't fully fleshed out, so there's going to be other things added to this. I guarantee it's going to go from 200 to 300.
Every day new projects come up.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Perfect, thanks. I think that's good insight on the workload. And I've been talking about it a lot privately with each of you that is, man, we're busy. And we all know during the budget process we need staff and there's a lot to do. But while you get back up here, the next item's any updates, but I think that kind of covered it. Did you have anything on top of that outside?
I think that covered it pretty well.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and review some of the agenda, specifically the closed session, or sorry, not closed session, the consent agenda. There's some appointments for the youth council. We've got the list Craig's been working on, I've seen over here. So you guys have seen the entire youth council list, correct? Yep. Any questions? The Miss Eagle Mountain's going to do an introduction. We have some minutes. July 21st, we're good. Site plan with the chapel and recreation building. We've seen this quite a bit recently. Is there any other questions on that one? And then an ordinance of Eagle Mountain City approving the same site plan, the chapel and recreation building. Yeah, development agreement. Sorry. Nothing on that one? Okay. Then a couple scheduled items. If we do have a couple minutes, if we can ask some questions now. I don't know if Kiara's here. Oh, yeah, that's just a public hearing only. And then on the CDBG action plan, so we'll take care of that. And then the rezoning of Scenic Mountain, which is just from a traditional zone to our current zoning. Any questions on that one? Any comments? Need any information provided?
Mayor, Evan had his hand up just for a second.
Oh, okay. Probably back on the public hearing? I'm just guessing.
Yeah, so we, just back on the CDBG public hearing, we discovered that there was an issue with that agenda item. It was not meant to be just a public hearing. There's supposed to be action taken. We're supposed to submit our plan to HUD by August 18th. And as far as we understand, there's not really any way
August 14th.
August 14th, sorry. Yes, August 18th is the next council meeting, August 14th. So we're kind of in a little bit of a tough spot because as far as I understand, there's not anything we can do to change the agenda tonight. So we wanted to just ask if there's any possibility we could do some sort of a special council meeting next week if we can get a quorum together just to approve the plan. It'd be a very short agenda, obviously, but that's kind of the last thing that we're left with.
Remote too.
So that's remote, that's easy.
Is that,
When are you thinking, Evan?
Whenever we can get a quorum together, really, it's.
Let us
we
know
have
when.
proper
We just need
notice.
3 people to sign off on it. So whatever is available for 3
Tuesday,
people.
Wednesday?
And it could be virtual morning or lunch
Right,
or.
they could appear virtually. Doesn't have to be after work hours.
I'll make myself available. I mean, I can.
Wednesday is, I'm hearing a Wednesday. That would be the 12th. Monday and Tuesday midday. Is Wednesday afternoon good as well? Like 5, 6 o'clock Wednesday?
Yeah, I can do Wednesday afternoon.
I can do that on Wednesday as well.
So it sounds like we'd at least have a quorum on Wednesday at 5, 6?
I can't do it in that late. Mine's earlier, so if somebody else wants to do it. Damon starts football Wednesday.
What's the latest you can go? 4?
I could do earlier. I have like noon.
Noon?
I'm fine.
Wednesday?
Yeah, I could do that,
Noon?
especially if it's virtual. I think it's important that, because it's all of us making a decision about where we're spending those dollars. So is there a time that we can find for everyone? Or Tuesday? How about everyone's Tuesday? Do we have Tuesday middle of day or Tuesday late afternoon? What are we at? Okay, anyone else? Okay, what about Thursday? I can do Monday. Perfect. Okay, Monday after 3? All right, let's do it. There you have it.
So Monday the 10th at 3:30.
Will you send an invite, please? Just so I can get it on my calendar and block it off.
It'll be a virtual 3:30 Monday. I suppose Kiara or anybody that needs to be there could also be there. Are you going to handle
They'll be
this?
present, yeah. Kiara and Elizabeth will help with that.
Okay, let's put it on for Monday the 10th, 3:30. Lacey, would you send an invite to council for that? And then we'll,
So does the public hearing still happen today then?
Yes, it still needs to happen
Okay.
today. Yeah. Appreciate you making that time accommodating. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, we already talked about the Scenic Mountain, then the TMP, that's the Transportation Master Plan, IFFP. Do you guys have questions specifically on that we could go over now before we?
I've got questions on that, but I think it's probably better with the larger presentation that's happening anyway. I think it's I don't know, we want to dive into that now. It's almost 6 o'clock.
Okay, so we'll wait on that one. I am going to try something a little bit different because it's, we have just a second. The legislative priority list, item 17. A lot of times we keep Mr. Magnus here till wee hours of the night. And if there's anything, if we need to make any motions, we'll have to do that later, but at least we could, if there's not, we could cut him loose a lot earlier than we normally do. Although I know he loves staying with us. So maybe we can knock out some legislative priority, anything on the list, and then.
So we haven't knocked anything on the list. It's pretty short these days. I still owe you the list for the state legislative. What I've been doing is going through all the minutes and agendas for all this interim committees. I finished that today. So I'll send that out so you know what's been happening at the state level, plus the other list that we talked about, and I'll get those out and start meeting with you guys. Right now, it looks like water is going to take top priority just because of the drought, and then followed by housing. So those are the 2 areas that I'm seeing there's a lot of discussion and movement on. So that's at the state level. Look, internally with the city, we're still working on things. I'm still trying to get the people with the poured concrete fences to return my phone calls. So as soon as I get that done, I'll get hold of you, Councilmember Woods, and start working on the design.
So I have one item. I had a builder approach me wondering if we can get more ladder signs. And I know, Councilmember Clark, I think there was something you were pursuing with wanting more ladder signs. I don't know what even the process is for that.
This is me wearing a different hat. So I know that the chamber has submitted something with Mr. Salazar and has CC'd you on it and Abby Ivory, and I will let you guys communicate with the chamber staff instead of me about the signs, if that helps.
What would the process be? So if a builder is asking for more ladder signs?
So I'll talk to you about code. Our code right now limits the number, and it requires that the map has to get brought back to the city council for approval every single time something changes. If there were going to be additional sign locations added, it would need to be either the city council approves it every single time, or there's a code change made to change it so that maybe city engineer and economic development make decisions about where new locations can go, so.
Okay, because the issue we're running into is on the south side of Cedar Valley, we're having new construction happen and newer subdivisions going in down there, and probably inadequate signage that didn't contemplate the new growth is happening down there, but our current signage is probably insufficient.
Hannah is ready to talk to you all about it. So if you want to reach out to her tomorrow, she'll be able to fill you in all the details.
So I've heard, I don't know that all council members are in favor of increasing those ladder signs. However, when we're talking about the expansion to the south end, does that change?
For me, I think that if we're gonna consider that we ought to have a work session discussion about it and a presentation about where those areas where perhaps there's a perception that we're deficient.
I would be in favor of that.
So I think rather than, what I'm gathering, rather than a legislative priority or on John's radar, it's more something that we gotta talk about as a discussion item or something.
Yeah, I think so, because I think part of that discussion has to be, if we're creating this because developers are asking for it, there probably needs to be a clock on these signs so that they aren't there forevermore. Because there's a lot that are already in our city, and once the building stops, then what?
Well, I think a heat map, so that we kind of look at it and say, look, we have this type of density in this area, and so that there's at least some equalization of that citywide, and I think that may be what you're referencing, Craig. Right. So I just think it's a broader discussion, because if it's just, can we raise the number to this number, my answer is gonna be a hard no. If there's data to support it that says, look, in this area, we have a saturation rate of X, but in this area, we don't have any signs at all. And there's a need to approve some in this area. That's a discussion I'm willing to have.
So I think some of those new areas would be the south of the city, but also Firefly. I don't remember if there's any signs out there.
Look, we're growing all over the place, and so I think we ought to be willing to have the conversation, but I think it needs to be data-driven.
I didn't have anything to add to Craig. I think that's a good idea. The one thing that I had brought to Evan was regarding trailers. I'm wondering if we could bring that back in a work session regarding parking multiple trailers. I'm going to say on like mid-range lots, half acre to acre, where people are stacking 3, 4, 5 RV trailers. It's obviously a business. And I'm just wondering if, I know that's come up to the council before, but I think we haven't landed on a solution, and we need to find a solution, whether that's better screening. Maybe one trailer can be publicly visible, but the other 5 need to be screened away from view. We've got that going on, I think, about 4 or 5 properties in my own neighborhood, and I would imagine it's probably happening throughout the city and other areas.
So what I'm hearing, Lacey, is if you'll add for upcoming items to the trailer parking code that I know we've worked on in the past. Was it trailer?
Just for discussion.
Yeah, for discussion items. And then in work session, and then the potential of locations for ladder signs. We can get Hannah to do a presentation or let us know where we're deficient on that with the help of staff if that's needed. Is the presentation from the chamber sufficient on that? Is that
probably?
I can make sure that the staff knows that they need to prepare a heat map and some of the things that you guys have asked for.
At the chamber is what you mean. You mean the staff at the chamber will do
Yes.
that? Okay, I just wanted to clarify
I'll
that.
convey that message to them.
Yeah.
Just didn't want our staff saying, okay, there's 205 on my list now.
So is there anything else, legislative priorities that we need to put on John's radar for today? Nothing? Okay. Then we do have a couple closed session items that we could take care of, and I know Craig's ready to make a motion.
I move the city council adjourn to a closed session pursuant to section 52-4-205 subsection 1 of the Utah Code annotated.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Whiting and a second by Councilmember Wood, right? Start the vote with Councilmember Hughes?
Yes.
Councilmember Wood?
Yes.
Councilmember Whiting?
Yes.
Councilmember Wright?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Okay, at 6:06, we'll adjourn to closed session.